Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ramoni. This video is super long overdue. A lot of people have been asking me questions about yoga, how to get started with yoga, how I got started with yoga, and I've had a lot of growth in the past month on my YouTube, my Instagram, and my TikTok when it comes to my yoga business and my yoga videos. So I felt like today was the best day to do this because this past weekend, I actually did my first radio interview for my yoga business, Yoga with Ramoni. And this radio interview was for 105.1 The Bounce in Detroit. I'm going to leave the link to the YouTube interview below. So there was like a video portion. I'm gonna leave that in the description box below so that you can go watch it if you want to. And then yesterday I also taught a pop-up yoga class in Detroit, Michigan. And if you're new here, I am from Detroit, Michigan, but I live in Los Angeles. So that is why Detroit is such a big thing here. I taught a pop-up class in Detroit yesterday and all the girls were there and everybody had such a good time. And now I'm like, okay, let me answer y'all questions. I get a lot of DMs and a lot of comments asking the same question, so I figured why not make an entire video about all the things. And I want to let it be known that I am not gatekeeping anything. So if you feel like there is something that I didn't touch on that you really wanted to know in this video, make sure you leave me a comment below asking your question. All right, let's start with how it all began. I have been a yoga instructor for the past 2.5 years. A lot of people think that I've been teaching for so long. I have not been teaching for so long. I've been a personal trainer for a very long time, but I've only been a yoga instructor since December 2022. Right now, when I'm filming this video, it is July 2025. So it has been 2.5 years since I became a yoga instructor, and I did that through Core Power Yoga. This is not an ad, but if you are from Core Power like headquarters and you're watching this video, maybe this could be an advertisement. You could sponsor me. But no, this is not an ad. I took Core Power's yoga teacher training. I took the 200-hour yoga teacher training and I got the BIPOC scholarship. If you don't know, yoga teacher training can be a pretty penny. It can be anywhere from the hundreds to the thousands, just depending on what type of program you're doing. There are a lot of different programs. So like I said, I did Core Power's 200-hour and that was in Los Angeles, California. And they were night classes 3 times a week. So 3 times a week, we met from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. And that took around 3 months because we started in September, we ended in December. When I went into my yoga teacher training, that was actually my very first time being in a classroom setting where Black people were not the majority. For those that don't know, I am an HBCU graduate. I graduated from the illustrious Fisk University, but furthermore, like I said, I'm from Detroit. I've always been around Black people, even in the classroom. So when I took my yoga teacher training, there was about 4 Black people. I want to say 2 of them were mixed. Do not quote me on it because like I said, that was 2.5 years ago. But there were about 4 Black people and like the rest were white. And I'm trying to think how many people were there. I want to say, let's say it was 30 of us. 4 of us were Black, 26 of us were white. And that is what really showed me how there's like a discrepancy when it comes to race in wellness. Most of the yoga teachers that are graduating from these programs are going to be white. So that means that most of the yoga teachers that are going into the industry and teaching at the studios and teaching these students are white people. And that's no fault to them, but I mention this just to say if you are a Black person or even just a person of color who is interested in teaching yoga and you feel like you don't want to do it because there's nobody who looks like you and there's no representation, sometimes you have to be the representation. Sometimes you're not going to see the thing that you want to experience. You are meant to create the thing that you want to experience. So that's just food for thought. If you are interested in being a yoga instructor, do not hold yourself back just because you don't see what you want to experience. Also, another tip, I told you that I got the BIPOC scholarship. When you are interested in doing your yoga teacher training, apply for scholarships. Now, I don't know exactly what scholarships you should apply to because I only applied to one and that is the one that I got, but research things. I feel like people are allergic to research these days. People ask questions like, what should I do? Go on Google and look up yoga teacher training scholarships, apply for all of them, get a few of them, and get your yoga teacher training. So with Core Power, if you take their yoga teacher training, you automatically get a yoga job as soon as you graduate your teacher training. So I worked at Core Power for 6 months and I worked at 3 locations and I was teaching anywhere from 11 classes to 14 classes a week because the pay structure is so unaligned with what I wanted to be making. So you had to teach a lot of classes just to make a living wage. And a lot of people don't know I am a full-time yoga instructor. So at the time that I was starting to teach yoga, I was a full-time personal trainer and content creator. And now I'm a full-time yoga instructor and content creator. I kind of had to let personal training go just because if you know, yoga takes up all of my time. Teaching virtual classes and doing all the things, yoga takes up all of my time. So at the time that I started teaching yoga, I was a full-time entrepreneur. So I did have another stream of income. So I wasn't pressed about the money that I was making at the studio, but it still wasn't enough for the amount of hours that I was giving. I told you I was teaching anywhere from 11 to 14 classes. 15 classes made you full-time. So a lot of teachers would try to get to 15 classes, but everybody would burn out before then. So I was never able to get to a full-time. And I even just had to start cutting back because I was a hot yoga teacher. So the room was anywhere from 80 degrees to 105 degrees. And I told you I was teaching up to like 14 classes a week. So that's like 2 to 3 classes a day. And it's just too much, honestly. It's too much to teach those classes. And then I told you I'm a personal trainer. So, I'm training my clients and I still have to do those things for my business. It was just a lot for me. And that is why after 6 months of working at a studio, I said, you know what? Just like I'm a personal trainer on my own, it's time to be a yoga teacher on my own because I'm not making a living wage and I am drained. I told you I was working at 3 locations. I'm driving everywhere. And if you know, then you know, LA traffic is no joke. And so who wants to be in traffic for hours just trying to go teach a yoga class for $16 an hour? Some people may want to do it. It's not me. So everybody always asks, how did you start yoga with Ramoni? How did you start your yoga business? I just started. I was tired of working at the studio and I was like, okay, I've taught well over, I think in my first 4 months, I had taught well over 100 hot yoga classes. I remember when I hit my 100th class, I was just like, child, this is too much. I already know what I'm doing. So I created a flyer on Canva. I looked on Peerspace and found a space to rent out for the hour. And I promoted that flyer everywhere. I will say my flyer was able to reach a lot of people because aside from like personal training and wellness, I've always been a content creator with my own brand as like Ramoni, which is what this YouTube page used to be before I started talking about yoga on here. But I've always been a content creator. So I started off with like natural hair, weight loss, and now I do lock content. So basically, I had a good amount of followers on my personal Instagram, so I was able to promote the flyer on there. And then on my personal training TikTok, I have 100K, even though I'm not training anymore. I feel like it was just a waste. Now my TikTok is just floating in the abyss. But I had enough followers on there to where I was able to promote the flyer. But I'm not gonna say everybody came out and that really helped because it was not my target audience. Yoga wasn't my target audience on either of these pages, but people were just able to see those flyers. So it did help out a little bit. But honestly, I just promoted. I promoted like my life depended on it. I had everybody and their mama reposting the flyers, posting it on their page, talking about it because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I have literally been an entrepreneur since the age of 15. And I'm not talking about like, oh, I have a side business, even though there's nothing wrong with that. I'm talking about I've been a full-time entrepreneur all my life. I started off doing hair and then personal training and now yoga. Like I've always worked for myself. So I was gonna make sure people was at them classes. I don't care. I was gonna make sure at least like my first class after I had quit my studio job, people was gonna be there. So I promoted it every single place. And if you're interested in starting any kind of business, just know that you are going to learn more from trial and error. Yes, I learned a lot from teacher training, but teacher training just teaches you how to be a teacher. You learn how to be an entrepreneur by actually getting in the field and doing these things. I don't think that people know that I have a business degree too, so I've always just been business savvy. So a lot of things are just in me and I don't have to be taught that, but there are some hurdles that I had to get over as it relates to business and just working with a new crowd of people. Like I was not in the wellness space like this. I was kind of in the weight loss wellness space as a personal trainer, but I wasn't in this specific aspect of wellness as it pertains to yoga. So I just had to learn some things. So don't get discouraged when you feel like you don't know something, you feel like things aren't going the way that you would hope for them to go, because a lot of people look at the success that they perceive me to have on social media, and they're like, you know, I can't wait to do this like you. And I'm like, if you only knew that everything always goes wrong behind the camera, especially on class days, especially on days where I have pop-ups in other cities, I'm like, there's always something that is going to happen. So you just have to be adaptable, and as a business owner, you just have to always know how to pivot. You need to know how to pivot when people aren't signing up for the classes. If people aren't signing up for the classes, what I mean by pivot is you need to figure out why people aren't signing up for the classes and how to make them sign up for the classes. So being a yoga entrepreneur is just more than being a yoga teacher. If you're at a studio and you're just a yoga teacher, that's also fine. But a lot of people ask me how to start their own thing. I put my all into this. I just told you I quit personal training completely to do this. So I'm just always willing to grow and learn in this atmosphere. And you also can't wait for the perfect time to start something. That frustrates me like no other, when people are telling me all of the things that they want to do, but they're waiting on this perfect time. There's never going to be a perfect time. Life is always going to be lifing. Things are always going to be happening. You're either going to do the thing or you're not going to do the thing. And I think that since I'm a yoga instructor, people expect me to be so like flowy and go with the wind. No, I'm a very logistic person, especially when it comes to business. You are either going to do it or you're not going to do it. If you're not going to do it, stop talking about it. But if you're ready to do it, then start the thing. You don't need to have all of the resources. You never have all of the resources when you start. No famous person has ever said, I had all of the resources and then I started. No, you start, and then when the universe and God and source sees that you are stewarding over what you have right now, you're able to get more. And then a lot of people always ask me how I even had the thought to create my business. So I don't even know if I said this at the beginning of the video, but I teach hip hop and R&B yoga for Black and brown women. I had an interesting experience in Encino, California. It's not the blackest city. I'll just say that it's not the blackest city. I went to a yoga class and I felt discriminated against. When I had that experience, I said, okay, I know that I'm a yogi. I've only been teaching yoga for the past 2.5 years, but at that time I had been doing yoga for like 7 years prior. So I know that I'm always going to keep going back to yoga classes. But in my mind, I said, if other Black women who have never been to a yoga class had the experience that I had here, they would never go back to yoga. And we see it all the time. Women are like, I went to a Pilates class, I went to a bar class, I went to a yoga class, and I felt discriminated against, so I never did that thing again. And I didn't want Black women to be experiencing that. And I decided, you know what? I am going to become a yoga instructor. So that's when I decided to become a yoga instructor. And then, like I said, I got tired of working at the studio and I said, it's time for me to really create what I came here to create. So I decided to do hip hop and R&B yoga for Black and brown women. And clearly, I just love 90s R&B, 90s hip hop, 2000s hip hop. Like, I just love Black music. So I'm always listening to Black music. So it was kind of a no-brainer. I wasn't like, oh, this is going to be good for marketing. No, I already listened to Biggie and Tupac and Ice Cube while I'm doing yoga. So why not just teach the yoga class to what I already teach to? First of all, it's going to help me as an instructor because I'm going to feel more familiar because I have my music. If I walked into a class and I tried to teach with instrumentals and it was waterfalls and wind chimes in the background, I wouldn't be no good to none of y'all. I need exactly what I listen to all the time, and that is Black music that we all grew up on. So that is why I just decided to create it. So honestly, people be going into it thinking, what angle can I use so that I can get a lot of people to sign up? That was just never my thought process. My thought process is always to be myself. Like, literally talk how I talk and just be the person who I am. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. Well, I guess I am, because she's done being humble. She's in a season where she's done being humble. For real. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but that's just what brings the people when you just be yourself. When I'm just myself and I talk how I talk and I teach how I teach and I just act how I normally act, people just sign up. It's in you. You ain't got to try to be no other yoga instructor. You don't have to try to be another Pilates instructor that you saw. Just talk how you talk and do what you're gonna do. And I mentioned this in the radio interview. It's something even as small as remembering your students' names. I have a lot of students that come back and I remember their name and they're like, oh my God, you remember my name? But I'm just a person who hates when people forget their name. So I just try to treat people how I want to be treated. I try to make my classes a very like familiar and home type of vibe. And I just am not fake with it. So that's my advice for new yoga instructors, because a lot of yoga instructors ask me for tips and tricks. There is no tips and tricks. Be who you are. Like, Be who you are. But I will say I do have a tip. Work on what you want to focus on right now and then let it naturally expand. When I first started, I literally just had Saturday classes, an in-person 9 a.m. Saturday class in LA. And then that turned into virtual classes on Zoom. That turned into YouTube classes. That turned into different pop-ups in Detroit and Dallas. That turned into me moving to Costa Rica for 6 months to teach yoga. That turned into a lot of different things, but I started off with one main focus. I think that when people get into things, they're so excited for the growth and the expansion that they spread themselves too thin. So many people wanted me to start teaching virtual classes and doing YouTube classes as soon as I first started teaching yoga. And I'm not gonna lie, it was a little imposter syndrome because I didn't know if I was ready to do that. But personally, I just knew I wasn't ready to spread my focus out when I needed to fill up my own Saturday classes, because it started off good, but then I talked about this in another video. I started to dwindle down as it related to attendance in the class. So I had to really figure out how to keep people coming back to class. And I just really didn't have the time to focus on other things. So I'll say just focus on one thing right now and then just let it naturally unfold. And things don't have to unfold right now. I'm 2.5 years in and I just started teaching on YouTube 2 weeks ago. Literally 2 weeks ago. I made my first video on Juneteenth and then it just decided to blow up. So just go at your own pace and don't let the outside world rush you, even if it really sounds good. Everything that glitters is not gold. If I would have tried to do virtual classes in YouTube and all that when I first started, I would have gotten overwhelmed and I may have even quit. Well, no, I wouldn't have quit. I just would have been overwhelmed. Y'all know I don't quit. But I would have just been overwhelmed. And who wants to be overwhelmed? And don't be afraid to see where your talents take you. I just told y'all last year I was living in Costa Rica for 6 months. I had only been a yoga instructor for a year. And I went to Costa Rica for 6 months to teach yoga. Don't be afraid of where life is going to take you. Just be open to it. That's one thing about me. People always ask me, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? I'm not scared. There's just never no reason to be scared. There's never a reason to be scared because you are always taken care of. And you truly have to believe that. I truly believe that no matter what happens, I am always taken care of. So why wouldn't I try this new thing, this new opportunity that's been presented to me? So I just want to recap what we talked about. I want you to apply for scholarships if you are thinking about becoming a yoga instructor. And then when it comes to starting your yoga business, just start. Don't even think about it. Get on Canva, make that flyer, get on Peerspace if you need to find a space to rent. I know that there are some other apps and websites, but Peerspace has always really been super handy for me. But if you know of any others, you can leave them in the comments below. Remember to be yourself and to do what works for you. If you don't listen to hip hop and R&B music, don't play hip hop and R&B music in your class. If you do listen to it, then play it in your class. Do what feels right for you, and remember that there are no rules in this. Your creativity has no rules, it has no limits. So really think about what you want to embody in your classes as an instructor and then lead that way. And just be consistent and don't let fear trick you out your spot. Be consistent as in you are showing up all the time when you have the energy to do so. Don't let fear and imposter syndrome make you feel like you need to be anybody else, because you don't need to be anybody else. Your students are showing up for you and they can't support you if they don't even know you because you are hiding, because you're scared. If this video resonated with you in any type of way, I want you to leave me a brown heart in the comments below. And if you're interested in hearing more about my yoga journey, or you want to take my yoga classes, I'm going to leave both of those YouTube playlists down below, because I have a big playlist of yoga classes and then I have another big playlist of me talking about yoga, and I have some vlogs from Costa Rica. All the things are going to be in the description box below, including my Instagrams and the TikToks and the yoga classes that you can sign up for on Zoom and all the things. And also, if you are an aspiring yoga instructor or you are a yoga instructor, let me know in the comments. I love when I have the yoga instructors in the building. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that it helped you, and I'm wishing you so much success on your yoga journey. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you in my next video.